The city's most magnificent building was bathed in lights today. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars falling from the sky. The scent of white roses wafted through the air, as if a dream had opened. There were whispers of guests, soft music, and the flash of cameras everywhere. This was a wedding that had been talked about for weeks. Wealth, splendor, and awe. Everything was at its peak. The bride, Alia, looked no less than a queen in her white lehenga. There was a faint glint of pride in her eyes, as if she believed the world was at her feet. Sitting next to her, the groom, Fahad, dressed in a blue suit, was smiling at the guests, but his smile was hidden by an unknown uneasiness. In a corner of the hall, a girl dressed in a black and white uniform stood silently. Her name was Miriam, a small but very attractive face, a deep seriousness in her eyes, and her hands rested helplessly on her growing belly. She was pregnant, and it was no longer possible to hide the fact for long. Miriam had been a maid in this house for the past 2 years. Her voice was very beautiful, but she had never transformed the sorrows of her life into a song. Even today, she was just a maid, but fate had something else in store for her. The ceremony was at its peak when suddenly Alia grabbed the mic. There was both humor and command in her voice. On this special night, I want our maid Miriam to sing a song in front of everyone. I heard she has a very good voice. Why shouldn't everyone be happy? A light laugh echoed in the hall. Some people thought it was a joke. Some looked at Miriam with interest. Miriam's heart sank. She knew that this was not an invitation, but an order. There was no room for her to refuse. Fahad looked at Alia in shock. "Is this necessary?" he asked softly. But Alia smiled and silenced him. "Just one song. Everyone will be happy." Miriam was brought to the center of the stage and made to stand. Her hands were shaking. The heat of the lights, hundreds of eyes, and a secret hidden in her heart, all combined to make it difficult for her to breathe. Miriam closed her eyes. She remembered her mother's words. "Daughter, when the world tries to bend you, use your voice as a support." She began to sing. There was a pain in her voice that went straight to the heart. Silence fell in the hall. There was truth in every word, a story in every note. The song was about love, betrayal, and the twists and turns of fate. As she sang, tears began to flow from her eyes. She looked at Fahad for a moment. There was surprise in Fahad's eyes, and recognition too. Alia felt that the mood of the gathering was changing. People started whispering in praise of Miriam. The truth in her voice pierced Alia's pride. Suddenly, Alia took the microphone and said with a laugh, "Wow, that's amazing. But it seems our Miriam has become a bit more emotional. Maybe it's the baby growing in her belly." Hearing this, silence fell in the hall. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Miriam's belly. Miriam's face turned pale. She lowered her eyes. She didn't want to hear this secret in public like this. The glass fell from Fahad's hand. "What does this mean?" Her voice was shaking. Alia shrugged. "Oh, you don't know. Our maid is going to be a mother. But who the father is, maybe she doesn't even know." Miriam raised her head. There were no tears in her eyes anymore. There was a strange strength. "I know who the father is," she said in a low but clear voice. Everyone in the hall stood breathless. Fahad's heart started beating fast. Miriam's eyes fixed on him. "That person is here." The smile on Alia's face froze. "What kind of drama is this?" she said in a stern tone. But Miriam was not going to remain silent anymore. "When I came to this house 2 years ago, I never thought that my life would come to this point. But some relationships are made by fate itself." Her voice was trembling but full of truth. Fahad took a seat. Old memories began to flood his mind. That rainy night, when he had asked Miriam to leave the house. The moment when they had both confessed their loneliness, and the promise he had made but failed to keep. Aaliyah's marriage was a business deal, not love. But today the truth was out in the open. Aaliyah, angry, raised her hand to slap Miriam, but Fahad stopped her. "Stop it, Aaliyah." There was a fear in her voice that was perhaps showing for the first time. "It's true." There was a commotion in the hall. The guests started looking at each other. Aaliyah's eyes showed a look of disbelief. "Have you gone crazy? Today is our wedding," she shouted. Fahad took a deep breath. Marriage should be based on truth, not lies. "I made a mistake, but I can't hide it anymore." He walked closer to Miriam and placed his hand on her shoulder. "This child is mine, and I will not run away from my responsibility." Hearing these words, Aaliyah's face turned white. Her dreams, her pride, were all crumbling to the ground. Whispers among the guests intensified. Some people started leaving the hall. Tears started flowing from Miriam's eyes again. But this time there was no fear in them. There was a strange relief. At that moment, a domineering voice rang out at the door. "What's going on here?" Everyone turned to look. Fahad's father, the city's famous billionaire businessman, whose arrival no one had anticipated, stood at the door. There was a hardness and dignity in his eyes. He moved forward slowly. "I want to hear the truth now." The atmosphere in the hall became more tense. Fahad bowed his head. Miriam, trembling, explained everything. Her love, her mistake, her fear. Aaliyah stood silent, tears in her eyes but pride still on her tongue. The billionaire father closed his eyes after hearing everything. After a few moments of silence, he opened his eyes and looked straight at Miriam. "Daughter, you dared to tell the truth. This is the greatest thing." Then he turned to Fahad. "And you accepted the truth, albeit late." Aaliyah looked at him in disbelief. "Are you siding with him?" she said bitterly. He replied seriously, "I am siding with the truth. Wealth does not bring honor. Character does." Hearing this, everyone in the hall was stunned. Aaliyah grabbed her shawl and walked off the stage without saying a word. Her dreams were shattered. Fahad held Miriam's hand. There was regret in his eyes, but also determination. The billionaire father announced, "Today's ceremony ends here, but there will be a new beginning, based on truth and responsibility." Miriam felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her voice had changed her destiny today. But the story wasn't over yet, because the real test was about to begin. The next day, the same news was circulating all over the city. Newspapers, social media, everywhere there was talk of the same marriage that could not be consummated. Aaliyah was locked in her room. In her heart was anger, shame, and broken pride. She felt betrayed, but somewhere inside her, there was also the feeling that she had humiliated Miriam by considering her to be just a servant. Meanwhile, Fahad was sitting in his father's office. The walls of the room were decorated with pictures of achievements. But today the atmosphere was harsh. "Son, love is not weakness, but running away from responsibility is weakness," his father said seriously. "If you accept Miriam and your child, you will have to stand firm in front of the whole world." Fahad nodded. "Ed, I'm ready." His voice no longer had the hesitation it had yesterday. He went straight to Miriam. Miriam was sitting in the small room, looking out the window. "I want to associate you with my name with respect," Fahad said, "not out of any pity or pressure, but because I love you." Love is not just words, it also demands sacrifice. She said slowly, "Are you ready to change your world?" Fahad answered without hesitation, "Yes." A few weeks later, in a simple ceremony, in the presence of a few close people, Fahad and Mariam were married. There was no fuss, no show. But this time there was truth in the air. The billionaire father himself placed his hand on Mariam's head and said, "From today on, you are not just the daughter-in-law of this house. You are our pride." Aliyah heard the news from afar. Her heart was pricked, but with time she realized that this was the end of pride. She decided to take charge of her life anew. Months later, when Mariam gave birth to a son, the whole house was filled with joy. Fahd held his son in his arms, tears in his eyes. "I promise, I will never let you be ashamed." Mariam smiled and closed her eyes. Her voice had taken her on a journey from humiliation to honor. She had learned that the price of speaking the truth may be great, but the end is always bright. And so a marriage that had begun with humiliation turned into a new story of truth and love.